I don't know.
Live. So we'll be live here in a couple of minutes, and then we'll wait for Marcus to join. I'll hit that record. Oh, man. My volume levels, are they good?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right.
Did you see that message? I got a dude that I met through Facebook Marketplace handed me a Wayne Gretzky autograph.
Yeah, you said that. That was pretty cool, actually. We're live on YouTube. This is the Titletown Lounge podcast. We'll be getting started here with Marcus Eversole on the podcast today from 107.5 The Fan out of Green Bay. Pretty smart guy. We'll be discussing a couple of topics with him, including the turmoil with Aaron Rodgers. The 17-game schedule, is that good or bad for the NFL? And then, of course, the top remaining free agents in the NFL. So sit tight, stay tuned. I'm going to kick out a couple of tweets so we can get some people in here. Hopefully my dogs no longer freak out.
We need some NFL news. Let's go draft.
Yeah, no kidding, man. That draft can't come quick enough.
Oh, see, a lot of teams are setting out off-season programs now.
Yeah, I saw that statement that the guys from the Broncos released.
Yeah, and
saying that they were not going to be partaking in off-season, like the non-mandatory stuff.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it was to be expected. I was waiting for that to start happening, and I think post-draft you're going to see that pop up quite a bit. I can't imagine they're going to be the only team that does that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers end up doing that here shortly.
No, I think every team's going to follow suit. I agree.
Yeah. Which, it is what it is. I mean, that was the same case last year. I mean,
yeah,
they're actually going to have even more of a preseason this year than they did last year. But I still can't imagine that they'll have full, summer camps, OTA, stuff like that. Something tells me that it's not going to be mandatory until late summer. Until padded practice, stuff like that. It probably won't be mandatory.
Now, I was trying to do a little bit of research. When they added the 17th game, did they take away a preseason game or two?
See that I haven't determined that either. I
couldn't find. I found articles that they said that that they thought they should, or that they're thinking about it, but I don't remember seeing an actual NFL statement come down and say okay, we're adding this 17th game, but we're going to sit out 2 preseason games.
They still have 4 weeks scheduled for the preseason. They've got the Hall of Fame game. And then preseason week 1 is August 13th through 17th. Week 2 is August 20th through 24th. Week 3 is the 27th through the 31st. And then week 4 is September 3rd. So they still have 4 games scheduled. I can't imagine that, you may see the starters for a quarter in the 3rd game now. And then
if that, yeah.
I'd be shocked if Aaron Rodgers took a snap in the preseason this year.
Well, and I was going to bring it up too in the show too, and I still will. But I mean, the product, they didn't have preseason last year, and the product didn't fall off at all. So if anything, it was just as good as it's ever been. So
yeah, the only guys that really need a preseason are your draft picks and your young guys. I don't guys like Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones. They don't need a preseason. It's all like clockwork for them.
Totally agree. Packers. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I said Packers just want to see one with Jordan Love, but that's a whole nother topic.
He'll definitely get some playing time if there's preseason games this year. He'll definitely get quite a bit of playing time. Like I said, I can't imagine that Rodgers even takes a snap, and I don't know who they have as a third quarterback right now. I don't think they even have one, do they?
They don't. No, not right now.
They may sign, some nobody for preseason purposes, but
yeah, they probably will. But yeah, as of right now, they don't.
I think Tim Boyle's going to be QB2 in Detroit.
Or 1. You never know. I mean, yeah, no, I agree with you at minimum for sure. I don't see how he isn't, but I mean, not, Jared Goff was great. Yeah, I think he benefited a lot
Yeah.
with Sean McVay, but yeah, you're right. I mean, at minimum, he's two, and I think he might push for that spot. He's talented, man. He's a big dude. He's got a strong
He is
arm.
talented. Yeah, he is talented. I was actually very confident in their backup scenario just in case Rodgers got hurt. I think that
Yeah.
he could have won a couple games in Green Bay. Dude, I fed you already. You ate, fatty. Go lay down. My dog's over there kicking his bowl around. All right. So I'm set. I'm ready. We'll just wait for Marcus and
Yeah,
then we'll kick things off.
sounds like a plan. I love these Sunday morning shows. It's
Yeah,
one
I
of my
do too.
favorites.
Except for when I'm hungover, but that's another discussion.
And it was a fun Saturday night.
Yeah, it was a great night last night. I threw a surprise party for my girlfriend.
Yeah.
She finished school, and so we had that at her parents' house, and then another couple we're really good friends with from Madison came out, and we just went bar hopping a little bit, and
That's awesome.
Fort Washington and up here, so it was a great time.
Yeah, with you being out, I was watching, your video and your Twitter and watching Juan out, and then me being at the Brewer game. It just felt like a normal life for a second.
It did.
You know what I mean?
It did. Yeah, it really did.
Like being at the ballpark, seeing you guys out and having fun, and it's like, oh my God, like we're almost there. Like this is awesome.
We are at the finish line. That is for damn sure.
It was awesome. It was awesome to be back. I probably told 100 people that last night that I ran into. It's just amazing. It just felt so good.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah.
They're a little bit strict on their rules and whatnot that they, but that whatever. If I can watch a game there, I'll do what I have to do.
It's a start. So at least
it's a start.
At least they have fans.
They Bob Uecker mentioned it. I hope not breaking news or anything right now, but he mentioned it on the radio last night because you could hear it throughout.
Yeah.
He said no guarantees, but he thinks that they're going to be bumping up the number very soon. I
could see that. I could see full stadiums by July.
I could too
for Wisconsin because they're Roger Goodell had the statement a couple weeks ago that he expects all 32 NFL stadiums to have full fans.
Yeah.
So I could totally see a full Brewer Stadium by middle of July, maybe after 4th of July. I bet
we'll have to get you and Juan down to a game.
I plan on going to a couple of games this year for sure. Once I get out here permanently, I plan on going to a couple of games
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Juan, I think, lives close enough to walk there. I know my parents he lives right by my parents, and they live really close. Like,
he's a 10-minute drive, if that, from the stadium.
I'm about 15, so I'm not too bad either.
It's a bit of a drive for us, but it's not that bad. It's probably about 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, they did a lot of, I don't know the last time my mom jumps on the live chat. Hi, Mom. Good morning. I don't know if last time you were there, they did a lot of upgrades in Miller Park. Last time I've been there, they've done a lot of new.
I haven't been there since. Did I go in 20? I don't even think I went in 2019, to be honest. Oh, I did. I went to one game in 2019. It was a Cubs Brewers game.
Yeah, they did a lot of. They added lights onto the roof now, so that's cool. That's different. Obviously, the Bernie slide is all new. They added a bunch of new scoreboards, a bunch of new upgraded signs of the sponsors. It looks pretty. It looks good.
Oh no, it was 2018. I sat in a suite. A coworker of mine, his wife works at American Family, and they have a suite. And I went to a Cubs Brewers game for that too, and it was all catered. I mean,
oh yeah, those are the best.
Beer, brats, hot dogs, hamburgers. I mean, the whole nine. We're just waiting on anybody who is watching the live feed. We're just waiting on Marcus Eversole to join the show. We'll be discussing a couple of topics with him. Once he joins, we will get the podcast rolling. Thank you all for joining on this a little bit earlier than normal show this Sunday morning, April 18th. It is a gorgeous morning out today. It's supposed to be about 60 degrees. It's nice and sunny. I know we got a couple cold days, Monday, Tuesday, but I believe towards the end of next week, it's supposed to start heating up. I think mid 60s it's supposed to be.
Juan drops in. He's correcting us. He said he's only 5 minutes away.
Condolences to Juan. He couldn't join us this morning.
Yeah, Marcus did respond to my message about 20 minutes ago and acknowledge it. So I would assume he'll be on here any second.
Okay. Yeah. That is fine. We'll give him a couple more minutes. He can always, I can always get the intro going and he can hop in, but I'll give him a couple more minutes so he can join before we start recording.
Love me some NFL talk. I am ready to get some football talk going, ready to watch some draft. You always know when the draft coming, spring's here, and then it goes so fast, and then you get into off-season programs and then training camp. It's like one of my favorite times of year. You got baseball in high gear, you got basketball going into the playoffs, and then NFL draft. It's the best.
As much as I love NFL football, I mean, obviously it's the biggest sport in the country and it's the most exciting thing to watch, but I actually dread the beginning of football just because that means your summer's over.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't like to sit here and say like, oh, I can't wait till football. Like I can definitely wait till football because I want to enjoy a summer.
It's a good time. I agree with you as far as like the season goes. But I like the start of the football because obviously we're all excited. Every team has a fresh start and a fresh team, and then you get into baseball playoffs. There's Marcus.
All right. I'll get the recording going and we'll jump right into it. Thank you for joining us, Marcus. Good morning. You're on mute still, bud.
Boom, boom. There you go.
There we go. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining. I'll get the show kicked off right away. So give me one quick second, and then I'll start recording.
I love that hat, Marcus. Good pick.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I like your hat as well.
Thank you. I spent way too much money last night at the Brewer game and bought it, but hey, oh well.
I figured I would leave my Cubs hat to the side for today.
Smart.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Titletown Lounge podcast. Remember, we are sponsored by our friends over at One Call Technology. One Call senior staff has over 100 years of experience in virtually every aspect of business communications, business phone system installation, service, managed telecom service provider, high-speed internet, and carrier management. Remember to go over to their website, onecalltech.com, or give them a call at 888-585-8850 and tell them that we sent you. My name is Rhino. You can find me on Twitter at Sports Talk Rhino. Of course, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Brandon. Find him on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. And of course, we are joined by our special guest, Marcus Eversole, part of 107.5 The Fan out of Green Bay. You can find him on Twitter at Marcus Eversole. Marcus, what's going on, bud? How you doing?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
We've got a great show. We're going to go over today. And we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to discuss the turmoil going on with Rodgers. There's a lot of rumors swirling around that they're at kind of a standstill with the contract negotiations. Any kind of extension seems like it is not happening this year. People even going as far to say that there is a potential he could get traded yet even this year. What are your thoughts on these rumors swirling around right now, Marcus?
I mean, there's so much speculation that it's so easy to go to. I mean, there are so many more unknowns than there are knowns right now. That said, like, the ingredients are obviously there for it to get potentially ugly, I mean, like, you just look at the facts over the last year. You take a quarterback in the first round. Aaron Rodgers comes back with the best season of his career. And now we're looking at his contract thinking, yes, he's under contract for 3 more years, but no more guarantees after this year. And they haven't given him a raise. They haven't given him a restructure, done really anything, whether it's as a reward for the MVP season or just trying to get below the cap to get other guys. They did nothing to his contract. So you go back to the Jordan Love part of it. And like, they clearly see him as a quarterback of the future. I'm sure Rodgers would like some security with his contract and something to be done with it. But basically like he said all along, since they drafted Love, the only thing he can control is the way he plays, and how he's played since they made that pick was better than anybody. He's the MVP. So essentially what you've got here is Aaron Rodgers' job is to make Brian Gutekunst's job as difficult as possible to get rid of him and make that transition. So all that to say, the ingredients are definitely there for this to get hairy, ugly, whatever word you want to use. It's just, that said, we don't know exactly why Rodgers' deal hasn't been worked out. We don't necessarily know it was the Packers trying to do one thing, or maybe Aaron doesn't want it yet, or give leverage or whatever. A lot of speculation, but again, long-winded way of saying this could get ugly. I mean, the ingredients are obviously there.
And we all know the politics of NFL contract negotiations. Obviously, you'll have, somebody from Rodgers' camp that'll leak a statement out to the press. Then you'll have somebody from the Packers organization that'll leak a comment out to the press to try and sway the public opinion one way or the other. Do you think there is any water in the statement that he could still potentially be traded this year? I mean, is that a real possibility, or is that just smoke? Is there any fire with that statement?
I guess you never say never, but I'd be shocked. I mean, I don't have any like inside scoop on that whatsoever. I would just be incredibly shocked. Again, like, it's so funny because obviously the NFL is the gift that keeps on giving. We're talking about it year round, but what matters is playing football games, right? Winning and losing. How are you playing? The last time we saw Aaron Rodgers on a football field, he was the MVP of the league. He just threw 48 touchdowns, playing the best football of his career. You don't trade that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he went 14-4 in consecutive seasons, 2 years under a 2-year head coach, first year's under a new head coach. Like, when he's been on the field, he's been great. By all accounts, his relationship with LaFleur is great. Imagine that from what everybody was saying when they hired him. But it's like, this is where I think maybe we're starting to overthink it, or people are just reading really hard, too far into it. Maybe you just don't trade that guy. I mean, I know they picked Love last year, and that started the clock on the transition, if you will. But if he keeps playing like this, who's to say Love will ever be the guy? When we've seen it, the last time we saw him on the field, he was the best player in the NFL. Like, I think it's a pretty good thing right now. I can't see the Packers moving on from him.
I have been one to say that I don't personally think Love will ever see the field in a Packers uniform unless there's an injury to Aaron Rodgers. Brandon, what have been your thoughts about this entire offseason with Aaron Rodgers' turmoil in the contract negotiations?
Well, it wouldn't be an NFL offseason unless Colin Cowherd or Skip Bayless were breaking down Rodgers drama, as it feels like it is every year. I look at it this way. There's a couple things. I mean, it's a revolving wheel that's never going to stop. I mean, Rodgers is under contract through the 2023 season. So you look at it that perspective. Okay, he's locked in right now. He wants, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, he's going into a lame duck season. I mean, he's not. He's under contract. He has a massive cap hit, which I think is the largest at $37.2 million next year in the NFL. I think it's like 30% of the team's cap. But he is the best quarterback in the league last year. And I'll take it a step further. And I've said it multiple times, and I'll say it again, and I'll fight anybody that wants to fight. He's the best quarterback to ever play the game. And the way that the Packers operate business, as we know, is very conservative. And when you've got the best player, arguably not arguably in the league, he is the best player in the league, but arguably to ever play the position, you have to maximize what he can bring and what the potential is with the team. And it's disappointing that they've done nothing really as of yet. I know that, you brought back Aaron Jones, and obviously you signed Bakhtiari and Kenny Clark during the season, but it has a real feeling that this is a running it back one more time. You bring back pretty much 21 out of 22 starters from last year. You lose a couple pieces here and there. Obviously Corey Linsley, you're not going to be able to pay him, but it really has a feel of, okay, this is it. Rodgers' cap hit after this year is massive. They restructured pretty much everybody other than Rodgers. So it feels like they're going to run it back. There were a couple plays from a Super Bowl appearance, and it feels like they're going to run it back and see what they can do for 2021 going into 2022. And I think that they're just going to address it after this year. But I do have a feeling, I do, like, when the fan comes out in me, and I do have a feeling that they're doing something behind the scenes that we don't know about. Remember, we didn't know Julius Peppers was a Packer until there was a video of him walking around Lambeau Field. We didn't know Aaron Rodgers was engaged. Not that we need to know, but we didn't know he was engaged until he was engaged. We didn't even know he was dating somebody. Like, he operates differently. I think that there's something going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. I mean, at least I hope there is, but I just, it really does with what we do know has a real feeling of one more year, like one last run with this exact team.
Marcus, the narrative, at least in the media, is that the Packers have not done enough for Aaron Rodgers throughout his career, and then obviously the rumors that have been coming out over the last couple of weeks is that Rodgers' contract is the reason why they're unable to do things, and his unwillingness to budge with whatever way they're trying to rework the contract. Who's to blame right now, in your opinion? Is it a Packers front office issue? Is it an Aaron Rodgers issue? Who is the culprit with the issues that are going on between him and the franchise?
I guess if we're playing I mean, well, I think going back to the comment about his future or him operating differently, like business wise, that is always a possibility, right? That all of a sudden, who's to say tomorrow or in 2 weeks or God knows when, all of a sudden, oh, Aaron Rodgers restructures his contract. And then we can clearly kind of see, because that's another part we're waiting for is the timeline. What kind of commitment are they going to give him? I understand Rodgers is under contract. He also probably doesn't want to go into every offseason now from here on wondering, is this my last year? Where am I going to be living next year? That kind of thing. It is fascinating, though, that they were able to get below the cap without their biggest ATM, if you will. Like all their money's tied up in Rodgers, and that could be what gets them in on some free agents. I don't know. But then again, we kind of knew their financial situation coming into the offseason, like they weren't going to be big players. Once they signed Aaron Jones, I think that was pretty clear. Like that's their big move. That's just the reality of where they're at cap wise. I don't know if we're playing the blame game in terms of that. The one thing I'll say is financially, in terms of their lack of activity in free agency, like they made their 2 years ago when they signed the Smiths, Amos, they had the 2 first-round picks, they signed Billy Turner. Like that's when they made their move, right? They get the new coaching staff. They made their move. They went all in. Now they're kind of paying for it, So like, I understand wanting them to go out and do some things, but they made their move 2 years ago. You don't do that every offseason because you feasibly can't do it. And if you look at the roster they built, again, let's not overthink it. Think about the most important positions in football. Quarterback. Their quarterback is the MVP, and he's got the biggest cap hit in all of football. They're paying him top dollar. Left tackle. David Bakhtiari, top dollar. They're paying him. Kenny Clark on the D-line, incredibly important position. They got a legit number 1 receiver they're paying in Devontae Adams. You know what I mean? Like Zadarius Smith, pass rusher. Arguably 5 of the most, if not the 5 most important positions, they have a top paid player at it. So when you're building your roster that way, they've spent, but they've also spent wisely, I would make the argument, right? I mean, they put together a really good, so I don't know if there's a whole lot of blame to go around. It's kind of just that these contracts they've paid out, while they're at the right spots, they're kind of paying for it now, and they're just not in a position to go keep adding because they can't,
And it's when you look at everything that has gone on with the spending that the Packers have done. I mean, there was a tweet that Mike Florio put out about his contract as the reason why the Packers have not been able to go out and do anything in free agency. But then, you look at the actual numbers, they're dead last in the NFL in free agency spending since 2011. Out of all 32 franchises, they spent the least amount of money in free agency pretty much throughout his entire career. So is it really the contract that's holding them back, or just their unwillingness to negotiate in order to open up the cap space to make the moves, or even when they had the cap space to make the moves? So, I mean, going forward, if they don't negotiate with Rodgers, they don't extend Rodgers, is this his last year in Green Bay?
I'm going to say no again. And this is just, I know when you draft Love, there's this, you'd like to have your quarterback. If you take a quarterback in the first round, you'd like to have him starting when he's still on his rookie contract. So you can basically opportunity cost of the money you would be spending, spend it elsewhere. You get that whole idea. But there's also no law that says by year 3 or year 4, Jordan Love must be starting for the Packers. I'll go back to what I said earlier. The last time we saw Aaron Rodgers on a football field, he was the MVP. I don't know. I mean, he's 37 years old. It could decline at any point now. He's at that point. But based on what we saw last year, I don't see that happening soon. I cannot imagine if he's playing at this level. I can't imagine the Packers moving on. If they do move on after this year, I think I was about to say good thing, but I don't want people to get mad at me, because what I'm saying is that if they were to move on from him after this year, that has to mean that Jordan Love is pretty damn good, or they're pretty damn confident that he's pretty damn good. So, I mean, the Packers are in a position where they can, as harsh as it sounds, they can do whatever the hell they want. Like, I mean, when they think that Aaron Rodgers is starting to decline just a little bit and Love's at the ascent, and if they think it's close enough to where, yeah, we don't need to be paying this kind of money, let's get something for Rodgers and we can still go with Jordan Love. When it's at that point, they can do whatever they want to do. I can't, if I'm a betting man right now, I cannot imagine them getting rid of Aaron Rodgers as long as he's playing like this. So I do not think this is his last year in Green Bay. I really don't.
Brandon, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I agree with Marcus on that, because like, here's the other thing too about it. Like, and maybe they know more about it, about Jordan Love than we do. Obviously, not a lot of people were allowed into practice last year. We don't know, and maybe they don't know what they have in Jordan Love. And I think that as time goes on and he develops, Jordan Love, that is, we'll get a more clear picture. But I'm with Marcus. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going anywhere. I hope, obviously, as the fan in me, that he doesn't go anywhere, but I do not see him. Mark Murphy, Matt LaFleur, I think Brian Gutekunst, all after the season said, like, we're not, I think, to sum up Mark Murphy, said, we're not idiots. Like, he's not going anywhere. And I can't imagine that they would cut ties with him. First off, you'd have to explain it to yourself in the mirror, then go in front of people and say why you let go of 3-time MVP and arguably the best quarterback to ever play the game. And honestly, look at it like the overall picture, like Tom Brady. I mean, credit to him, but he like ruined football. He ruined how we looked at things. Like, credit to him. 7 rings, phenomenal, awesome. But like, that's an anomaly. Like, that's not real. Like, that's not realistic. Like, even Joe Montana, Drew Brees, and Dan Marino, like, these guys didn't go out and win 7 rings. Like, Tom Brady's done it, and we'll probably never see it again. But the Packers have done a really good job as far as, and we broke it down a few weeks ago, and I think last week as well, like doing what they do and drafting and developing, and then it works. And again, when you go out and we had fans complaining about, not going out and spending, $80 million on whatever position you want to name, but like, they spent their free agency money during the season. You lock up the best left tackle in football. You lock up a top 3 defensive lineman, and then you, right before free agency hits, you lock up top 5 running back. So like, they're, like Marcus said, like, they're doing their spending wisely. And I think they're doing a lot, as much as they can, especially in a COVID hit year with the salary cap, doing what they can do. Rodgers, you would like to see a little bit more around him, but I don't think that he's going anywhere. I think that he's here for probably, if into his 40s. I hope so, at least.
And I'll add one thing. I don't know, Florio or whoever, but going something that has been a narrative that drives me nuts in the media in terms of, and this is national media, not that I'm like, I don't want to be the local guy throwing stones at the big guy, whatever, but like,
let it go, Marcus. We're all about it.
It's just the concept of them not putting enough around Aaron Rodgers. It's like, every national media outlet seems to have the same bullet point list of things to pick on the Packers for. Like, I have heard it that that Rodgers has never had a 1st-round receiver. They haven't spent a 1st-round pick on a receiver since Javon Walker back in 2002. It's like the same bullet points they keep hitting. What's the point? Who cares? So basically, you're saying because they haven't taken a 1st-round receiver for Aaron Rodgers, that's supposed to mean what? That the Packers have never put talent around Aaron Rodgers, like they've never given him enough weapons. On the contrary, in reality, if there's one thing Rodgers has had throughout his career, he's had weapons. Like, think back to the Sports Illustrated cover in 2001, where he's got Randall Cobb as his 5th receiver and Jermichael Finley's still around. Like, basically, they haven't taken a 1st-round receiver for Rodgers because they were so good at finding receivers in the 2nd and 3rd round. So what, when they've got Jordy Nelson, James Jones, Donald Driver, and Randall Cobb, Greg Jen, when they have all those guys, they're supposed to pick a 1st-round receiver? No, they hate Aaron. Like, what? there's no the first round receiver thing. The narrative drives me nuts. To bring a full circle, if they took a receiver in the first round this year, fine. Don't really care if the value's there, but it's so nauseating, this idea that, yeah, the Packers just don't care about Rodgers, or they don't give him enough to win. Dude, he's won 3 MVPs. Like, what? So they haven't taken a receiver in the first 32 picks. That means they hate him, I guess. What? Like, this makes no sense to me.
I've never stood on board with they haven't done anything with them for him offensively. I mean, you mentioned it, that 2011 Sports Illustrated cover. That's one of the greatest wide receiver cores assembled over the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, no team has had top to bottom 5 options like that. I mean, maybe outside of Tom Brady last year with the Bucs. That's probably the only thing that could compare. I do, however, stand on board, at least up until 2019, that they did not do much for him defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, going into last year, he only had 2 top 10 defenses throughout his career. I mean, you compare that to Tom Brady, who had, I believe, 13 top 10 defenses out of 18 seasons with Tampa Bay. So I will stand on the ground of they have not done a great job defensively, but they've at least gone out and tried. They have taken cornerbacks in the first round. They have signed a couple of free agents defensively. So, I mean, the swing and miss on the defensive side of things is one thing, but at least the effort is there. At least they have tried to put the pieces around him. So no, I completely agree with you in the sense that they have done quite a bit for Aaron Rodgers. As a matter of fact, I would go as far to say is they've done more for him than probably the majority of the franchises have done for their quarterbacks throughout the entire league.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't. Go ahead.
And then I think we saw a shift in that finally. I think with the coaching change a couple of years ago, we've seen a shift in how they're building their team. They've always put a bunch of weapons around him. He's always put up great numbers throughout his career. When he's winning MVPs back in 2011 and up until like these last couple of years, they said, you know what? What if we have this crazy idea? What if we just have a running game and some decent weapons around him? And then we put a bunch of money in on defense because we've swung and missed in the early rounds so often. Let's just go get guys who are coming off their rookie contracts, the Smiths and Amos. Like, let's put our money there. And they're trying to build a team with a legit, just a decent defense, for crying out loud. Like, be middle of the road is okay. You're going to win a lot of games with Rodgers that way. If you've got a balanced offense, I think it was a brilliant move for sure. I mean, they had the best offense in the league last year. Defense is at least a little better. You're absolutely right, though. I mean, that's the reason Aaron Rodgers hasn't been back to the Super Bowl is not because of Aaron Rodgers. It's not because of the offense. It's because for most of Rodgers' career, when they get to the playoffs, they hand Rodgers the ball and say, hey, go hang 34 points and we have a chance to win. Like, okay. I mean, that's almost impossible even for the great Aaron Rodgers. So you're right. I mean, in terms of the defense, they've tried, they've swung and missed a lot. That's what's been lacking. I think we've seen the shift over the last couple of years. Now they just got to get over the hump, but they are 28-8 combined since that shift in philosophy. So it's, I'd say, trending in the right direction, or at least a good direction.
And I'm with Marcus. Just a real quick, buffer off the national media. Like, I think, and obviously I'm a homer and I'm going to defend my team, but like there and fans throughout, Bears fans, Vikings fans, they laugh at, the Packers and not winning Super Bowls with Rodgers, more than one. But it's like, the franchise in itself takes such a hard hit with the national media and the Florios and the cowards, because like, you're like, oh, well, you see Tom Brady going out and getting Antonio Brown and whoever, Gronkowski and blah, blah, blah. Like, arguably you could argue, and I don't know, I don't have anything in front of me, factual to say, but like, there's not probably a better franchise that has a better draft and develop philosophy than the Green Bay Packers. You're talking about multiple Hall of Famers, multiple Pro Bowl players. Like, it's just unfair that the treatment that the franchise gets, because of this Rodgers, debate. Like, he's still under contract for 3 more years. Like, people are talking about he's going into a lame duck season. No, he's not. Like, it maybe with the cap hit for next year, you don't want to, address that maybe next year, but he's still under contract for a few more years. And the franchise just, for whatever reason, gets dragged through the mud. And I don't know what it is about the Green Bay in the offseason when the NFL has no news, like when the end of the season and free agency and then free agency to the draft, there's just nothing to talk about. Every year, it seems like it's Rodgers in the franchise. They hate each other. They're going to break up. Like, no, they're not. Like, let it play out. He's still under contract. And guess what? They can extend him. They can restructure him at any time. Like, it's going to be okay. I think he's going to be here for a while.
And it's funny because when they spent the pick on Love a year ago, you knew this was coming because whenever there's a plan in place for the future or something that could get a little juicy or controversial, you knew it was going to be a storyline. But there's something to, don't want to sound like the woe is me picking on the little guy, small market type team, but it goes back well before the Love pick, right? I mean,
absolutely.
They hire Matt LaFleur, and it's like you would think that he and Aaron Rodgers couldn't be in a room together before they ever played a down or took a snap as head coach and quarterback. And then before that, it's the McCarthy and Rodgers stuff. And like there's some truth to it, but it's like even if there's some truth to the reports, or like Rodgers did bring some of the conversation upon himself after the uncertain future, myself included, comments. Like there's a story there. It's not like completely fabricated, but it just, in these dead times, it does feel like the Packers are the go-to, right? Like it was all Dak in his contract with the Cowboys, or it's what might be screwed up in Green Bay.
Yeah, let's go pick that. Let's go figure what's out. It drives me nuts. And I'm a homer, but it's like, it's just annoying. Like you got Chicago in flames right now, and they just like, it's all right. But hey, we know Rodgers is under contract for 3 more years. He's going in for a divorce. Like what?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons for that is the Green Bay sports market is virtually non-existent. And when you compare it to the New Yorks, the Los Angeles, the Chicago, so it's easy. Yeah. It's easy for, the Colin Cowherds, the Mike Florios to pick on that because you're not going to lose the viewership. You're not going to lose the web traffic. You're not going to lose the sponsors or anything like that. If you say something bad about Los Angeles, you're going to have 30,000 people that turn off the radio. You say something bad about Green Bay, you're going to have 5 people that turn off the radio.
Yeah.
So I think for the last 20 years, that's why it's been so easy for the national media people to kind of view Green Bay as the redheaded stepchild. Let's just abuse this franchise for no reason because we have nothing else to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just every year, like no matter, like they're back-to-back NFC championship games in a coach that people in the national media and even some in the local media were laughing at. That was the whole offseason in 2019. Matt LaFleur, like he has got the 28th ranked offense in Tennessee. Like this is going to be fun. Watch how Rodgers, doesn't even look at him because he's the same age. Or, it's always something. There's always something with national media, even local media in the Green Bay Packers for whatever reason. If they had 5 Super Bowls, they would want 6. They're just never satisfied.
Well, and like and I'll just bring up the Love pick again because I'm watching, and I watch Good Morning Football every day. I think it's a great show, NFL Network. I love
great
it.
show.
Like,
yeah,
the Jordan Love pick still comes up on that program quite frequently. Like, it's one of the worst picks ever. I can't believe they did it. Whatever. Like the perception of the Jordan Love pick by the Packers is still far more scrutinized a year later, even though you knew he was redshirting. He was going to hold the clipboard. He hadn't taken a snap. We didn't even see him in the freaking preseason. And yet that pick, and we don't know anything now, just like we probably won't know anything or a whole lot 1 year from now. It's going to take a while. That pick is still scrutinized more than the 29th pick in last year's draft being out of the league now. Isaiah Wilson is literally out of the league because he screwed up so many times. He got traded for a swap of 7th round picks, and then got let go by his new team. The 29th pick a year ago. And that's just like, what a bust. But then I love it, man. It's like, it just gets picked apart so much. And I want to give credit. Andy Herman tweeted that, but the other day. So that's
I saw that. Yeah.
Top of mind, but it's just like, it's such a good point. I'm not saying, and then you get into the Twitter conversations where I'm not saying Jordan Love is the man or it's a great pick. I'm just saying we don't know shit right now. Like we don't. We're not going to know anything for a while yet. So, but whatever. In the meantime, if you want to pick it apart, go ahead, rush to conclusions. We just don't know.
Two quick things. I mean, I was not a fan of the pick. I didn't like the Jordan Love pick. However, one thing to keep in mind is 4 years ago, the national media scrutinized Kansas City for taking Patrick Mahomes. There were some people that didn't like that pick. So one thing to keep in mind about that. Now, just quickly going back to the conversation we were having about, has the franchise done enough for Aaron Rodgers? One thing to keep in mind is a lot of people don't consider how much luck actually goes into winning a Super Bowl. It's not just the talent you put on the field. There are breaks that a team has to catch throughout the season in order to make it to the Super Bowl. You can say right now that top to bottom, all 53 men on last year's roster were better than the 2010 team when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, they were a better overall team. They were better coached. They had better quarterback play, better running game, better offense. I mean, you could make that argument. Yet 2010, they it was a firestorm through the playoffs. They won the Super Bowl against Pittsburgh rather easily. I mean, they led the entire game. And then, of course, this year in the NFC Championship game, the Packers were trailing pretty much the entire time against the Bucs. There are breaks that go into a season. And that Packers team last year just didn't catch the breaks they needed to make it. And that's not anybody in particular's fault. It happens. You have good teams that don't ultimately end up winning the Super Bowl. So a lot of people don't consider those breaks that go into it well.
Real question for you, for both of you guys. And Ryan, I'm going off your point. Like, do you think like the fans and Twitter and whatever, the dark web, I call it, would like kick Dan Marino out of the league if he was playing in today's game? Like no Super Bowls, like
he would
garbage.
He would be thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, it's ridiculous
in today's league.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said earlier with Brady, and the same can be said about the Patriots in general. Just ruined it for everybody. It's like Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael Jordan ruined it for every great player after him because Kobe couldn't just be Kobe. Heaven forbid LeBron can just be the second best player ever. And then we talk about it like, yeah, but he's not Jordan. Okay, the hell are you doing? So the Packers have only won one Super. There's really no such thing as only one Super Bowl. And on top of that, like, last year's team, to your point, and we can debate 2010 versus last year's. The point remains: have they put enough around him to win the Super Bowl? They were good enough to win it in 2014, and last year's team was good enough to win the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody can make a point that Brian Gutekunst or the personnel department or whatever, that they didn't do enough to get over the hump. They did. That team was good enough to go and win the Super Bowl last year. They just didn't. They're just on the wrong Sunday against the Buccaneers. They weren't the better team, so they didn't get the opportunity to go play for it. They were good enough last year, though. That doesn't necessarily like make it feel any better. I mean, it's like it sucks. It almost makes it hurt worse, right? If you think that they're good enough to win it and then they still couldn't get back over the hump. But yeah, there's no blame to go except with how you can blame them for how they played in the NFC Championship game, but they were absolutely good enough to win the Super Bowl last year. There's no doubt about it.
And the funny thing about that, to extend off of that point a little bit further, if they go out and win the Super Bowl in 2021, Brian Gutekunst will be looked at as one of, if not the best GMs in the NFL for all of the moves he made this offseason, or lack thereof even.
Right.
So that's the difference with media perception. Right now they look like they've done nothing. They go out and win the Super Bowl next year, he's going to be a genius. So that's the perception you ultimately have to battle with national media. We're gonna switch topics here to the 17 game schedule. This was something that was approved a couple of weeks back by the NFL. They're adding. Ultimately, it's going to be based off of your win-loss record from the season previous. So the Packers are adding a 17th game against the Chiefs. They will be flip-flopping home and away games each year. So this year they'll be playing on the road. The next year they'll have a 9th home game at Lambeau. Is this good for the NFL? Is this bad for the NFL? I mean, ultimately, what's going to happen with that 17th game? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What are your thoughts on that, Marcus?
Well, kind of conflicted because I'm like the way my mind works, I like symmetry and I like things that just are easy. And with the 16 game season, you break it down by quarter. All the records are what they are. Now, all of a sudden, like literally everybody's going to run for 1,000 yards, even though nobody runs the ball anymore. Just like things like that. There were nothing wrong with the 16 game schedule. At the same time, why would I be mad about another game of football? Like, I'm going to be watching every single Sunday. What the hell do I care? Like we're all going to eat it up. So
more to talk about.
And then it's going to go to 18 eventually. And then it's going to be the same exact thing. So it's more football. It's another Sunday that I'll be, working and then on the couch the rest of the day watching football all day. So my mind says there's nothing wrong with 16. That was a better looking number, I think, than 17 in terms of building a schedule. But at the same time, not mad about it. It's another week of football.
The issue that I have with it, I mean, obviously outside of the symmetry that you spoke of, 8-8 home and away and breaking it up by quarters and being able to use the 16 game schedule to assess players. The one thing that I am concerned with is it's another game of wear and tear on players, especially going into the playoffs. You want everybody on your team to be as healthy as possible. I believe that, if we go into next year and you see a guy tear an ACL in that 17th game, a big name player, ultimately what that's going to do is the following year, they're going to discuss having a second bye week in that second 17 game schedule. So now not only is your NFL season a week longer, it's 2 weeks longer because of that added bye week for everybody. So now your Super Bowl is no longer the last Sunday or first Sunday of the month. It's the second Sunday of the month, potentially the third Sunday of the month in February. It's going to shorten the off season, and it's going to put more wear and tear on the players. I mean, I couldn't imagine watching that 17th game next year and seeing, God forbid, an Aaron Jones or Devontae Adams come up lame with a torn ACL, and then postseason's done. Now, obviously injuries can happen at any time. We saw Jordy Nelson on a routine catch against Pittsburgh in the preseason a couple years ago come down with a torn ACL. So it can happen at any time. But yeah, exactly. Bakhtiari in the middle of the season as well. But I don't like it in the terms that it's more wear and tear on the guys that you just ultimately don't need to see. Brandon, what are your thoughts on the 17th game?
Yeah, when it first came out, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was excited. And then you saw like the reports like Packers and the Chiefs, and I'm like, man, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, like our schedule. And Marcus, I don't know if you I'm sure you probably already have looked at it, but the schedule is brutal.
The gauntlet.
I mean, and then you add in the best team in the AFC. So I was excited. Like the fan in me is like, yes, like another game in the NFL, like perfect. But then you peel the layers back a little bit, and then you look at it and you're like, okay. I mean, initially it looks like a cash grab by the owners, especially after a COVID stricken year. So it kind of looks like, they're grabbing some money, trying to add another game. But then you kind of look at 2020, and at one point there was no fewer than 13 teams on a playoff bubble. So competitively, the NFL has been as best as it's ever been. So I don't think that it was completely necessary to add a 17th game. I like it as a fan. I don't like it when you dig into it because yes, you're adding in more wear and tear. You're already playing Sunday and then going right to Thursday. I mean, that's brutal. And then the travel obviously with teams. And then now you add in a 17th game, you're adding in less importance to win your division. So now a team can, not go after winning the division. Obviously the Packers have owned the NFC North and we look at it as whatever, but winning your division in the NFL is a big deal. I mean, it should be a big deal. So now you're adding in another game. It adds less importance to win the division. Obviously the wear and tear. Don't fix what's not broken. The NFL, kind of like with MLB, they're just tinkering with a little bit too much. There's nothing wrong with the NFL right now. It's the number one sport in the world for a reason. Obviously soccer worldwide, I guess, is probably better, but whatever. And here it's the best sport in the world, in the United States. And I think that even when they tinkered with the playoffs last year, having the only number one seed with the bye week was too much. And then you add in another playoff game. I think that they're trying to do too much. And I don't understand why. So as a fan, I like it. It's another game to watch, another game to break down, more drama potentially. But when you peel the layers back a little bit, you kind of ask yourself like, why? It's already a great product. It's already a great product. You got, more fans than you've ever had, more people tuning in than you've ever tuned in. It kind of looks to me like crap. The owners are like, yo, hey, we had a horrible year with COVID. Like, let's just add another game. Let's grab that revenue for that 17th game. And the players have been vocal on Twitter. I mean, you guys see it. Like they hate it. A lot of them hate it. So like, I mean, it just looks like the owners just want more money. I mean, I don't know. I don't care for it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I know you said like, I don't know why. Yeah, you do. I mean, you said right there, you know exactly why.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. And, of course the players are going to hate it. Anytime they're adding another game, wear and tear, as you say it, players are going to hate it. But then again, players agreed to it. Like the players union agreed to this. Mm-hmm. So once they did that, it was inevitable, just a matter of whether or not when it was going to happen, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to money. And I know they'll say cutting a preseason game, you're basically replacing a preseason game with the regular season game, whatever. And the product of the preseason wasn't great. And that's that. It's like, yeah, you're right. But really what's most important about that is that you're going to make a shit ton of money on another regular season game and not lose a whole lot of it with the preseason game. The product is what it is. If you were making as much money on the crappy product of a preseason game, you'd keep it the way it was, but you're not. They don't care that starters are sitting out of preseason and it's unwatchable. As much as they tell us that, and we heard it from Mark Murphy, it's just not a good product, Yeah, it's not a good product. That's the reality of it.
I think one of the concerns also that you haven't really heard anybody talk about is with the 17th game is going to come a higher salary cap, obviously, in a couple of years when everybody recovers from COVID. You'll have a higher salary cap, and you're going to have guys that are going to be wanting more money due to playing a longer schedule. We've already seen a crazy bubble with these quarterback contracts. You got guys like Patrick Mahomes that are making $400 million, $500 million in Kansas City. The offensive lineman contract market has exploded. The gentleman out in San Francisco with the 60 some odd million dollar contract that he received. Do you think there's a potential here that this could drive NFL contracts into the NBA range where these guys are just getting these outrageous contracts and it's shortening the competitiveness of the league? I mean, you're going to have teams out there that just can't compete with the Packers and the Cowboys and these people who want to spend all the money that they can. Do you think that there's a potential for that in 4 to 5 years down the road?
Yes. I mean, in short, like I don't remember what's the number on the new TV contracts. It's
billions, something
think,
crazy. Yeah.
I think $2 billion annually or something like that. I mean, it's crazy, and it's only going to keep going up. And what were the details? Maybe you remember top of mind on the Patrick Mahomes contract, like $500 million.
505, I think it was ultimately. Yeah.
Like $500 million. Like, what are we? I mean, it's just going to get more and more. Like when Aaron Rodgers signed his contract, that wasn't that long ago. What was that? 3 years ago they extended Rodgers, whatever.
2018. Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, 2018. Like that was old news that off season. I mean,
within a week, I think it was.
Yeah. So it's just one after another. So I mean, in short, yeah. Like I think back to, NBA contracts, they had that ridiculous summer where like Matthew Dellavedova got $11 million a year, and you're what? John Lure got freaking paid, and you're like,
yeah.
Miles Plumlee.
Right. Yes, exactly. So I mean, yeah, I guess that's a long way of answering the question. Like, yeah, I could see it getting more and more like that. More money's coming in. They're going to be paying players more, and they should be.
I think Miles Plumlee was actually making more money than Clayton Kershaw was at the time.
Probably.
That's outrageous to me, man. That is absolutely outrageous. Yeah, I mean, you guys summed it up pretty well. As a fan, you absolutely love it because there's nothing better than a week of football, whether the Packers are playing or not. I watch every game that I can. I watch Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night, Sunday during the day. So as a fan, it's awesome. As a person who follows the game and obviously creates content regarding the game, it is something that concerns me a little bit in terms of health and in terms of what it's going to do to the financials of the industry. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add to this
real quick
segment?
This is a genuine question for both of you or whoever's tuning into the live feed. Did they say where they're adding that 17th game? Is it adding it into January, or are they adding it? Are they starting the season earlier?
The year is getting pushed back a week.
Okay.
So they're still going to start right around Labor Day,
okay,
that same weekend, the second weekend in September. Just the season is getting pushed back a week on the back end.
And then obviously that'll push the Super Bowl obviously another week. So then you're gonna
Valentine's.
The NFL just doesn't want an off season.
So there still is like an unwritten kind of agreement between NFL and college football. The college football always kicks off their season the first weekend of September. So it's kind of like that mutual agreement that college football gets the first weekend of September, NFL gets the second weekend of September. So I think they're going to keep that permanently. They'll just go on the back because usually college football is diminished down to just the playoffs and whatnot by the time the NFL playoffs start. So I don't think there's really a problem there. Moving on, we do have the draft that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. We've already covered the draft quite a bit, so we won't get too deep into that. I would like to talk to you guys about potential free agent signings after the draft. There are still some pretty big names out there in terms of free agents that are still without a team. I mean, Antonio Brown, Sheldon Richardson, Casey Hayward, Richard Sherman is still out there. Marcus, do you have a guy that you have your eye on that you'd like to see the Packers maybe try and target after the draft?
Yeah, depending on what they do, I mean, I still think corner is a huge need. I mean, you bring back Kevin King, and it's a 1 year basically insurance policy. Who knows? Maybe Kevin King kills it this year and they pay him again next year. I doubt it, but it's still a need, even bringing back Kevin King. And if they're not able to get a corner, because I think it's a big time need. Now I know the Joe Barry scheme might not stress corners as much as Penton's did, and maybe they have a higher priority on another safety or something. I don't know, whatever their plans are. I think they need a corner. And if they're not able to get one of the top corners, if Greg Newsome doesn't fall to them, or if they're not comfortable with Caleb Farley, or, a early pick on the kid out of Stanford or Melifonwu from Syracuse, if they're not able to get a corner early, then I think you look at the free agent market. And I'll say, I would have rather taken a flyer on a 1 year deal with Casey Hayward than re-sign Kevin King personally. I know Casey Hayward's not coming off a great year, but you're literally given a mulligan on one of the free agent decisions you probably regret the most in the last decade. Like when Casey Hayward was here, I know he had his issues with injuries, but when he was here, he was a stud in the slot. And then you had him for 4 years, and for one reason or another, didn't want to just play him outside or let him shadow receivers. He goes to LA. He's a freaking all pro. Like, he's one of the best corners, if not the best in the game at his peak. One bad year, gets cut because they're in cap problems, and now he's still out there. That one's still surprising to me. Unless he was way worse last year and like he can't play anymore, I can't believe he's still on the market. So if they go through the draft and they don't add another corner, even if they do, I don't care. I would take a flyer on Hayward if you have the money. I mean, if you're asking me, do I think they're likely to sign one of these big names? I would bet on no, because that's the smart money, I think, because they're, we'll see what back to Rodgers' contract if they do anything there. But yeah, I mean, I think they need to, or they could at least use another corner. And I know Richard Sherman is a little polarizing too, but if I saw on the bottom line Packers signed Richard Sherman to 1 year deal, I wouldn't be throwing stuff around the room upset. Like, hey, if they can find the money, the roster wouldn't be worse with another veteran corner. It's not my money. If you can get a guy, get him.
It does ultimately matter what they do in the draft. I mean, I've said that their biggest need, at least in the first or second round, would be interior defensive linemen. Give Kenny Clark some help. Take the pressure off of those middle linebackers. So I would like to see D-line taken. I think they ultimately pass on taking an offensive lineman in the first 3 to 4 rounds. Maybe take somebody later on in the draft. But there is one name that piqued my interest in terms of free agents, and that's Rick Wagner. Rick Wagner knows now he's not the greatest offensive lineman of all time. I understand that, but he does know the system. He's been on the team before. He's worked with Aaron Rodgers in the offensive line before. If they don't ultimately get an offensive lineman in the first couple of rounds, a guy that you would expect to start at least next year or fill in gaps this year, Rick Wagner would be a great name to add back to the team. And you could probably get him for a veteran minimum contract, maybe $1 million or $2 million. And I think that would be a valuable pickup. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with both of you. I think the draft is obviously going to be the, telltale sign, but yeah, kind of off of what Marcus was saying, like if and kind of, Marcus is breaking into Casey Hayward, that one hurting the most. Micah Hyde still hurts my feelings when I watch him play in Buffalo. Yeah, that one still bothers me, especially with the special teams issues that we always seem to have. But yeah, so like obviously the draft is going to be a big telltale sign. I'm a big guy on trenches. I think that obviously games are won and lost in the trenches. I think you guys all know that. I'm not breaking news here or anything. So I look at guys like maybe Sheldon Richardson, even Snacks Harrison coming, bringing him back. Like I don't think he got a fair run at, the rotation, in the playoffs. But then I look at a big, huge hole, which always seems to be a hole on defense. And it's like, what do you got in those two young linebackers? Like, hopefully, Joe Barry's known for developing and coaching up linebackers. Do they have enough faith in them? A guy that is on the market, and I still don't know why or how, and it caught my attention a couple weeks ago, and I revisited it today. KJ Wright, like I don't understand why he's still a free agent. So like seeing, I mean, I know he's 32 years old, but grabbing him for a year or two to either make a bridge between your young linebackers. You don't want to be making mistakes in the linebacker position, especially when you run a 3-4 in the NFC Championship game. Now I'm not blaming that loss on those young guys. I mean, Chris Barnes or any of those guys, but KJ Wright to me would make a whole lot of sense. You're not going to go out and draft a linebacker. Well, we assume with who you drafted, prior, maybe they do grab a guy a late round, but KJ Wright to me sticks out a little bit because it's a position of need. Yeah, a position that we've been lacking playmakers in for, I don't know, since Nick Barnett in early 2000s, maybe, I guess. I don't know. But so like the middle linebacker position is where I would look at even KJ Wright, maybe even like a Quan Alexander for, a cheap, 1 or 2 year deal, kind of bridge between your young linebackers, let Joe Barry, get some time under his belt instead of coming in as the defensive coordinator. He's already got all the pressure in the world on him and trying to put two, young one's undrafted and one's a late round draft pick and bringing them into a starting role. And so I think a Quan Alexander, maybe a KJ Wright to kind of bridge that future.
I feel like the linebacker position is it's really interesting this offseason because they never put a high priority on it as far as draft capital. I mean, since AJ Hawk in the first round back in 06, then it had Oren Burks in the late third was their highest pick. They've had a bunch of fourth, Jake Ryans, Blake Martinez of the world. But now you bring in a new coordinator. Does that change? Joe Barry's background is as a linebackers coach. And yet, with that said, does that make you more inclined to spend an early pick? Like you might say maybe, but then again, look at the Rams linebackers from a year ago. You can't name a single one of them. Like nobody knows who these guys are. He and their coaching staff helped them get to a point where they ended up being a good group of linebackers, even though like Micah Kaiser and I don't know who else, like they're a bunch of no names. So I don't necessarily know if that makes it more likely for them to make a play, but it could be. It's just a really interesting position to look at. And I like the Snacks Harrison ideas. When you were talking about Rick Wagner earlier, I was thinking Snacks Harrison also, just because neither of them are under contract. Sometimes the longer they sit out there, the lower their price gets. And for me, you go through the draft and there are certain positions that seem like it takes a little bit for rookies to get it. And in the trenches, I like veterans. Like maybe they're not, put it this way. Rick Wagner's on the market still for a reason, like he's not a great starting caliber player necessarily anymore, but he's a pretty damn good swing tackle. I want my swing tackle to be a Rick Wagner before I want it to be, I'd feel more comfortable in him than a 4th round pick rookie, and the same thing goes for the D line. Even like Ross Blacklock from TCU, I remember talking a lot about him last year, one of the best D tackles in the draft, or thinking maybe some help for Kenny Clark. I don't know of literally anything that he did last year. And that always seems to be the case with D tackles, that right away, they rarely really make a huge difference. Whereas Snacks Harrison, he wouldn't change the game, but he's a big freaking dude who's played about 12 some years in the league. He can at least take up space and stuff to run. So I like both those ideas. Rick Wagner and Snacks Harrison, roster's better with those guys for sure.
And you can't go wrong with depth. I mean, either way, even if and Rhino, I agree with you. You grab Rick Wagner for better minimum and you draft a guy, say in the 4th or 5th round, like awesome. We already know how it goes with the offensive line. And guess what? We don't know where David Bakhtiari is going to be come the start of the year. So that's just another insurance piece. If you do bring in a guy like that, or you end up drafting a guy, do both, because I don't know. I mean, I know guys come back faster from ACL tears than they have 10 years ago, but I mean, he just tore his ACL in late December. Like, what, 9 months from that? I mean, is he going to be ready come September? And the Packers training staff, they will not rush a guy back. They will not clear him until they're 200% clear. So I agree with Rhino on Rick Wagner even more now that I remember David Bakhtiari is coming out of off an injury.
And Jared Valdir too. I'll just throw that
Absolutely.
Yep. Every year, like that guy, who knows? he kind of just plays when he wants to. But if he wants to play now, I'm sure that clearly Goody has his phone number and Valdir has, and vice versa. But if he's willing to play, I just include him with the Rick Wagner camp. It's like, if the guy's going to come back in November, why don't you just ask if he wants to start right away now, start in September? Like those kind of guys, I think make the roster better for sure.
Totally agree.
Marcus, do you have a guy in the first round that you are dead set on that you want the Packers to go with? Who is your guy that you've been watching so far?
Yeah, Greg Newsome from Northwestern, I feel like is just the same. I mean, Big Ten, versatile, great athlete. It feels like a Packer in every fabric of his being, and I think he's so good. Like he legitimately, if he went in the first half of the first round, I wouldn't bat an eye. Like I think he's that good, and I know some people think he's more of an early second round guy, which is great to me because I don't think that at all. So if he's there in the late first, I wouldn't even be mad if they trade up for him, whatever. Greg Newsome is this year's Justin Jefferson for me. It's like, if he's there, you take him. Simple as that, which probably means he'll end up going 20 overall to the Bears because that's the way things go. But, and then I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not a doctor, but what I see of Caleb Farley, hell yeah, I want that guy on my team. And I don't know if you know, like, you listen to some of his interviews and the things that he says, and I know he's had 2 back surgeries. Yes, that's a concern. If the Packers doctors are okay with it, though, absolutely, I'm cool with Caleb Farley in the first round. The guy's a stud. But if you watch it, and if you watch any of his interviews, he just screams, "Put me next to Jair Alexander." I mean, those two guys would be in opponent's ears all game long, like just talking all kinds of smack. And then I just have to mention my biggest draft crush is definitely Rondale Moore because he's just such a unique player. I know the Packers don't draft receivers who aren't at least 5'11" and whatever. Rondale Moore is 5'7". Rondale Moore is also not a receiver, though. He is, but he isn't. You can do whatever you want with him. He's a weapon. There's no one in the league currently like Rondale Moore. I've heard him described as a smaller Percy Harvin, a smaller Saquon Barkley, and of course, because he's small and fast, a Tyreek Hill. Like he's incredibly fast, squatted 600 pounds as a freshman at Purdue, 4.29 unofficial 40. He's just ridiculous. I know it's not the Packers' biggest need, but my God, if they could find a way to get him, I just imagine Rondale Moore playing the role of Tyler Ervin. And when the Packers were without Tyler Ervin, you notice. I remember last year, like, I never knew if I were his agent, I'd go to the Packers and ask for a raise. Like whenever he was out, you notice that. Imagine a guy like Rondale Moore playing that role. I mean, he'd be a perfect fit in the offense. And at this point of Rodgers' career, something I think that's overlooked is not only what LaFleur's done in terms of giving him a running game, but Rodgers is way more willing to throw underneath and hit the checkdowns right now. If you put him on the field with Rondale Moore on the field with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron's going to be just as much tequila as he poured last year when they picked Love. I think he'd be ripping shots like Jaeger bombs if they picked Rondale Moore. He would be so excited. Imagining him out there as a little chess piece, just moving him around. Oh, cool. You got a linebacker on Rondale. Well, he's about to go 75 on your ass because you can't cover him. He's such a weapon, and I would love to see him in this offense.
See, I don't necessarily want to go offensive weapon in the first couple of rounds just because we don't need that, obviously. But that's the one guy that I would probably be willing to even move up for if available, because he would flourish in Matt LaFleur's offense with his putting people in motion in the backfield pre-snap, scheming guys open across the middle of the field. And you're exactly right. Who would you put on Rondale Moore if you've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling on one side, Devontae Adams on the other, and Big Bob Tonyan, coming out of the either the backfield or right in the slot right there at tight end? Who are you going to put on Rondale Moore? So you're absolutely right. I think that would be the one offensive piece I'd be willing to even go up for and get. Absolutely.
I think this has, and I hope I'm right, this has like a 2018 draft feel to it. Packers have 10 picks. Like, I don't think that they're going to use all those picks. It has a feel of drafting in the first round and maybe coming back into the first round or trading up and trading, I think that there's going to be a couple chess, moves made by Brian and Mark Murphy. I think this has a 2018 feel of when they got Jair and Darnell Savage in the first round. And I obviously, Rhino, you know how I feel about Greg Newsome. It's my crush since day one, since his pro day. really. Well, really, when he played the Badgers, to be honest with you. But yeah, yeah, Greg Newsome's signed. But I do have a feeling this is going to be a trading type first round draft for the Packers. I think they're going to trade up and then possibly come back into the late first round.
And they also did that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, the one thing I'll say in terms of trading, obviously Goody has traded up in the first round every single draft since he's been the GM in one form or fashion. Obviously, his first draft moves way back and then moves back up to get Jair, but he's definitely aggressive in the early rounds. Like he knows he's got his plan. He knows what he wants. And I'll just throw this out there as a possibility too. You know, the more mocks I've done and looking at boards, just trying to see, okay, what if this? And as much as we all, you know, kind of laugh at mock drafts. Yeah, well, they go right out the window come draft day. That's all true. It does give you a good idea of what could happen and what to prepare for. And one, I guess, scenario that I've grown to really like is actually if there's not a home run, if Greg Newsome's not there at 29, then like the next part of my flow chart is picking from a big pool of players, you know, like after, depending on Caleb Farley too. But then you got like I don't know, Christian Barmore or Cosme, the offensive tackle, or I don't know, Dylan Radin's another tackle, you know, like just this group in the trenches really, where if you're picking at 29 from that group, I like the idea of moving back into the early second round, getting yourself a shit ton of mid-round picks. And then then on day 2 of the draft, second and third round, you can get whoever the hell you want because you've got all that ammunition in mid-round picks. If Goody's like, you know what, now I'm picking at 38. All right, I'm taking the best available tackle. And now I'm going to wait till around 45 and I'm going to Rondale Moore still on the board. Screw it. I'll give you my 4th and a 6th. I'll go up and get Rondale Moore. And then he can do his damage on that part. So like just from what I can see based on boards and like doing different mock drafts, I kind of like the idea of moving back into the early second and then just getting crazy and going to maybe make 4 picks in the second and third round. How, you know, I feel like this roster would be pretty damn good after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're going to do something. I mean, you talk about not doing a whole lot in free agency, bringing back a lot of other, you know, their own guys. You had 10 picks in the draft. I think they're going to probably go with a lot of movement. And I agree with that in the second round. There's a ton of talent going into that second and third round. I would be completely fine if they don't trade up, or if they do and maybe they trade back. I mean, you're picking late in the first round anyway. I would be fine with a couple third round or a couple second round draft picks over than, you know, sticking where they're at.
Thanks for backing me up on that one while I was on mute there.
You're good.
My viewpoint on this draft the whole time going into it is if they're not willing to move up and if somebody doesn't fall to you at the 29 position where I don't believe a whole lot of guys that we would want are, absolutely move back into the second round. Even take 3 picks in the second round and add, you know, another one in the third. I would be all about that. Another name that hasn't really been spoken about a whole lot with the Packers is J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. But they would have to move up into like 12, 13 territory to get him. But I mean, that's the kind of guy that you could make that particular move for, is, you know, give a little bit of, you know, even a first round pick next year. I would be all about that if they can move up and get somebody like that. But yeah, if they don't move up and you know, a guy doesn't fall to you at 29, absolutely move back.
That's totally, yeah, that's the one name I totally agree that I don't expect him to go up that high. I mean, you're talking about if you're going to 12, you're giving up, you know, second round and change. I mean, second round, third round, or fourth round, whatever the chart says, you're giving up a lot for that one player. But if there's one player that I could see Brian Gutekunst falling in love with that much, I think it's probably J.C. Horn. I mean, at his pro day, he had like a perfect relative athletic score or whatever. He'd be the one guy. But it's like, you know, every mock draft machine that I'll do, and I'll get an offer to move way up, I always say no, because it's weird because this year there's only one player that I would even entertain moving up for, and it's J.C. Horn. Like, you'd love to have Jalen Waddle or Jamar Chase as the stud, or Kyle Pitts, but like, I think this team would be better off having a first or a set, you know, like 4 picks in the first few rounds than they would be to go all in on one particular player. They don't need a corner that bad to sacrifice the rest of your draft, I don't think, you know?
To be honest with you, I don't think they need anything that bad.
Right.
To sacrifice that kind of draft capital. So I am more in favor of moving back, having 3 picks in the second round, 2 picks in the third round. I'm more in favor of that than I am of moving up. But J.C. Horn is probably the one guy I would be willing to, depending on how much they expect in return for that pick, I would be willing to move up for him.
And historically, I mean, you look at the history of the Green Bay Packers, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, they've murdered the second round. They have hit gold in the second round on Greg Jennings, Elton Jenkins, Eddie Lacy was great for a few years. Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson. I mean, they have hit gold in the second round. So if you're not going to, trade up into the first round, maybe you trade back. I would be grabbing Asante Samuel Jr. out in the second round. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's another guy I really like. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to make some noise.
Across bad luck in the second round too.
Kevin
King was taken in the second round, and they passed on TJ Watt. So it all depends on your perspective of the second round.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Do you think that TJ Watt would be a Packer though after his rookie contract? Probably not. Money wise,
well, he's not. I don't think he's going to be a Steeler after his rookie contract.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
All right, gents, we are going to be wrapping up the show. Do you guys have anything else that you would like to add before we finish up here?
I don't think so. I think I already mentioned my draft crush on Rondale Moore, so that's usually the last thing. You might as well throw something in on him. But no, I will say though, actually on that, I just want to clarify. Like, I'm not talking about a first round pick on Rondale Moore. I mean, I am confident enough in him fitting with this offense that I'd be completely okay with a first round personally. Like, I think he would be that good for the first round pick on Rondale Moore, but I'm thinking more something along the lines of moving up in the second round to get him. Again, it's just not that they need to add to the offense, but just his role specifically with this offense and with where Aaron Rodgers is at in his career, how much the Packers receiving core was amongst the league leaders last year in yards after the catch, which is crazy considering they're not all that good after the catch. With all due respect, I mean, Alan Lazard's of the world, it's like you don't necessarily think yards after catch when you think about this Packers offense, but it tells you, and I talked about this with Ben Fennell the other day, like it tells you that the Packers are able to scheme people open really well, that they've got an open field in front of them. Imagine that with a guy with 4.29 speed. I mean, I should have never even brought up Rondale Moore again, but you can understand how I feel about it.
I'm kind of with, first off, I just wanted to say thank you to Marcus for coming on a Sunday. We both really appreciate it. It's greatly appreciated. And he goes into Rondale Moore, and I'm going to end with this. And we a couple weeks ago, Rhino and I broke it down. My big, maybe, I don't know if he gets to the second round, maybe obviously probably not the third round. I like Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss as that gadget slot type guy. I mean, talk about Rondale Moore running a 4.29. I mean, Elijah Moore's a 4.32. He's right there. I mean, that's another guy that I would really, really like in Green Bay. But again, hopefully we break down not drafting another quarterback in the first round, and it's a good draft, and we draft for depth. And again, Marcus, I appreciate it. That's just what I wanted to end with. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. That is going to end the Titletown podcast for today. Remember, you can find Marcus on Twitter at Marcus Eversole, Brandon, of course, at Wisco_Brandon, and then myself, Rhino, at Sports Talk Rhino. Make sure you check the podcast Twitter page out as well at Titletown at Titletown Lounge. And that's going to wrap it up for a Sunday show, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still live on YouTube, but that is the end of the recording. Marcus, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on, bud. We would love to have you on again, maybe after the draft. We can break down, hopefully, what is going to be a great draft for the Packers. So love to have you on again sometime soon.
All right, you bet. You guys have a good rest of Sunday, okay?
Thanks, Marcus.
Well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up the live portion of the show as well. Thank you so much to all of our audience that tuned in and watched us live. Condolences for Juan.